Yo, YouTube, what's up? Welcome back to the Radar for Rastin Studios.
What up, Mox?
AEW Dynamite just finished up. We have two takeaways from an AEW show, New Year's Smash Night 2. Remember, it's, pushed back a little bit due to the Brody Lee passing and the tribute show they did to him. So last week was Night 1. This is Night 2. Some interesting things going on. We had the Elite in action, a certain version of the Elite that was different than the one we thought we were going to get. So it's pretty interesting there on that aspect. We have the TNT Championship on the line. A couple things to get into. We had a good match to open up the show. So a lot of things to get into for the two takeaways. And we have news and rumors at the end. Some news on Chris Jericho and some news as to Tazz as to why his WWE run didn't really work out that well, straight from the mouth of JR himself. So we have a couple things to get into. Before we do it, you guys drop a like on this video. It helps us out a lot in the algorithm, YouTube algorithm. If you drop a like on the video, comment on the video as well, helps us out in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you're watching. Subscribe to the channel, notification bells to alert when new videos drop. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, all that good stuff. Same handles on all social media platforms. Links in the description section below. Click on those links, shop through there. Kicks back to our channel. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Let's jump right into it. Two takeaways: AEW Dynamite New Year's Smash Night 2. AEW Dynamite started off with Pac going against Eddie Kingston. Remember, Pac has the Lucha Brothers outside from the Death Triangle. Eddie Kingston has Butcher and Blade and the Bunny on the outside as well. Matchup was very, very solid matchup between the two. Pac gets the win, with the red arrow off the top, and then he puts, in the Rings of Saturn on Eddie Kingston to kind of rub it in. Here comes the brawl afterwards. They're all in the ring, and here comes Lance Archer to come break that up, and he gets in the face of Pac afterwards. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't really know where the storyline is really going. I see 6-man tags in the future, but other than that, I don't really know what else is going to happen between this.
And no Snake Roberts. I didn't see Jake Roberts.
He was there.
Oh, I didn't. Okay, well, sorry, I didn't see him. But I mean, I don't know. Archer's been lost. Pac is finally back. He was gone for so long. We'll see where that's building, but Archer, man, I don't know, man. It's been kind of just bummer since he lost to Cody.
Yeah, it has. He has not done much. So we'll see what happens going forward with this feud. Next thing on the show, we had Chuck Taylor versus Miro. This is pretty much Miro beating Chuck Taylor's ass, so it was a good spot for Miro to make him look even more dominant. The whole thing with him and Kip Sabian isn't all that great, but having him come out here and destroy Chuck Taylor and then eventually going to go after Orange Cassidy in the future. But now, since he wins, Chuck Taylor is his butler from now on. So we'll see what turns from that. It should be pretty interesting. I don't really think it's going to be that great, but let's see what happens going forward with that.
But at least Miro's in something. He's doing something more prominent. It's been kind of not really going since his arrival at AEW, so hopefully it picks it up here. Yeah,
big time. Next thing on the show, we had the New Year's resolutions for the Inner Circle. The Inner Circle seems to be okay now after Hager and Wardlow went at it. Now, Jericho says that him and MJF are going to go towards after the tag team titles. Then Santana and Ortiz are pretty upset about that because they were picked to be the tag team in the Inner Circle. And then Sammy Guevara was upset because remember, they were the sex gods, him and Chris Jericho. Yeah. And then it was Jericho and Hager, and now it's Jericho and MJF. So he did call Jericho a tag team whore, or a tag team slut, I'm sorry, because he goes from one tag team to another. He kind of is. He's been in a ton of tag teams over his career. He continues to move around. So next week, we're going to get 3 tag teams in a match to see who becomes the tag team in the Inner Circle. We got Santana and Ortiz, MJF and Chris Jericho, and Sammy Hagar. It's pretty funny. So we'll see that go forward and see what goes on after that, but it should be pretty funny to see what's going on with the Inner Circle going forward. But I thought it was a really good, funny segment for all guys involved. It was good stuff.
And Cesaro may be the only man that has had more tag team partners than Chris Jericho in the history of wrestling. So,
that is true. He's had a ton of tag team partners, and Chris Jericho has a lot too. All right, next thing on the show, it was the Elite in action. They were going to take on Griff Garrison, Brian Pillman Jr. of the Varsity Blondes, and Danny Limelight. They were going to take on these individuals, and we thought it was going to be Kenny and the Young Bucks. They're going to come out as a together, as all three, the Elite. But Dan Kyla said, no, we'll have separate entrances. So Kenny comes out first, and then they call out their tag team partners. It ends up being the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows, Doc Gallows, and Carl Anderson. This takeaway number 1 right here. You see them behind us, the Good Brothers showing up and having an official match on AEW Dynamite. So it was pretty interesting. They got the win, and then here comes John Moxley, comes in the ring and attacks all 3 guys, brawls with all 3. Then we have the Lucha Brothers come out and help John Moxley. It's a big brawl breaks out. People from the back come in, all that stuff like that. Jerry Lynn sighting was there as well because he's a backstage agent. So we had a lot of things going on here. Then we had what do you call it? This is actually a good time when they could have brought in other Impact tag teams, maybe Rich Swann, Motor City Machine Guns, guys like that come out and attack. Yeah, to have all these guys on the show, but we'll see eventually. I can see AEW versus Impact
Invasion.
Or pay-per-view on the horizon. I can see that going on.
I mean, that's probably where this whole thing is going to lead to one big payoff where multiple, wrestlers are on each show going back and forth, like kind of like Invasion or ECW back in the day when they jumped onto WWE for a little bit there in the late '90s. But yeah, this was a real fun segment. I liked it. The mock stuff was great. Seeing the the Bullet Club kind of like just show up there, and the Good Brothers who at the beginning of 2020 were in WWE, and now they're on AEW, now they're on on Impact. Their careers have gone full circle here. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, it is pretty nuts. And then we had the Young Bucks come in and kind of try to like calm everything down, and then they ended up getting super kicked by the Lucha Bros. So it's kind of interesting how like they were all like doing the two sweets last week, and this week they kind of played out for the Good Brothers. Interesting to see how the Bucks go forward. But the Bucks keep flip flopping between heels and babyface. They do one thing that's kind of heelish, and another thing is babyface.
Tweeners.
They're
just tweeners.
Yeah, they're really riding that thin razor blade line going across. But guys, that's takeaway number one: the fact that they played out the Young Bucks. The Good Brothers had a match on AEW Dynamite, and
good for them, man. Good for them.
We got Moxley coming out, no F's given, attacking all three guys in the ring, and then a big brawl breaks out with a bunch of people. Some of the locker room empties out to try to stop the brawl, but it was good stuff to see, and the continuation of AEW Impact storylines with Kenny Omega and Don Callis. Next thing in the show, we had Jurassic Express taking on FTR in a tag team matchup. Remember, it's Marco Stunt and Jungle Boy. FTR gets the win here. It was good. It was a good match. But FTR is this, the superior tag team, the top tag team in the company, in my eyes, anyways. Yeah. So we'll see how they continue to work their way here to keep going up the tag team rankings. Remember, the rankings reset on New Year's, start of the year, so they have to build their way back up to get a tag team title shot. Next thing on the show was Britt Baker's waiting room segment.
We got one of these now.
This is one of the things I hate, which are talk shows on wrestling. But the only thing I like about it is the fact that they didn't do it in the ring. They do it in the back when they do Britt Baker's. Most of the Britt Baker stuff's done on like AEW Dark, I believe. It's one of the first times you see it on AEW Dynamite. I do like that they do it like how Barbershop was, or Piper's Pit type of setup.
Yep. Or in the back.
Yeah, in the back. You could even do it how like the Brother Love Show used to be like on the stage or something like that. You could do it like that as well. But I did like that. They had Cody Rhodes on there. They're just pretty much, just poking fun at Cody Rhodes the whole time. Then Jade Cargill comes out. She's introduced, talks trash to Cody Rhodes, slaps him. Then Red Velvet comes out to kind of, defend the name of Brandy Rhodes. They brawl. Yeah. All the women from the locker room come out and break up this brawl. Then the brawl is broken up. It kind of cuts to the big screen. Britt Baker talks about, shows her beating up Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa cuts a promo where she has a match set up February 3rd at Beach Bash against Britt Baker. So we're going to get that match, Thunder Rosa, Britt Baker. So
should be interesting. And finally, Britt Baker's, in a big feud with somebody. So let's see if this catapult her to being the champ, pretty soon. Let's do this already. Come on.
Yeah, let's do it. But yeah, you're gonna get that match. But it's a kind of a bloated segment, but it was what it was. Next thing on the show, we had NWA Women's Championship match. Serena Deeb taking on Tay Conti. Match was what it was. Deeb got the win. Not much else to talk about here. We'll see how long they keep the NWA Women's Championship on the show.
I mean, it's more prominent than the AW than the Women's Championship, honestly.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. Next thing on the show was the main event, the TNT Championship match, Darby Allin versus Brian Cage. Darby Allin got his ass handed to him in this match.
He did.
Rightfully so. It's the way you should have played it. They played it the right way. He was bleeding, got busted open, and the tables were turned when Sting made his appearance. And this is takeaway number 2. Because still, your TNT champion is Darby Allin with some help from Sting with the reversal from Darby on Brian Cage off the top rope, turning into a crucifix pin, getting the win there, and staying in the ring doing the same thing he's been doing ever since he came back or debuted in AEW, is just helping out Darby and kind of just standing there. Yeah,
and just stoically standing there, and just it snows every time he's out there. So it's he's Storm from X-Men now. Like the match was actually pretty good. I like the way they booked it, where this huge man who's just a monster of he's the Hulk versus like Jungle Boy, and it's just like that's kind of what that match was like, and they did a great job of making it where he was just the underdog. I like the fact that he just like keep kissing my ass and keep kicking my ass, and here's the finger. So that was definitely fun. The way it ended, where he used Brian Cage's weight against him, that was awesome. So yeah, it was a good match. The Sting stuff is still weird to me. He just shows up and does really nothing. He just kind of it's Sting, and then like that's all we get.
Well, it's the first time he actually got kind of physical, because he did use the bat on Ricky Starks. Yeah,
that he did. And Ricky Starks' pants were ridiculous, but whatever. Different story. But like, are we gonna like Cody didn't show up? Is Cody gonna do something? Are they doing a 6-man? Are what is it all about? So more, I think it's more questions are coming before we get any answers for it. So I think it's gonna be more of this going a mysterious thing, and that's what they're going for.
Yeah, the money is in the matchup, the tag team matchup that we're eventually gonna get. I think they're just trying to hold it as long as they can. So the next pay-per-view, I think it's Revolution is what they're waiting for.
Yeah.
They're just like waiting and waiting for that next pay-per-view to book this match onto it. They may fuck around and put it on Beach Blast. I doubt it, but I think they're just trying to hold the line as they wing. It's just until they can get to the pay-per-view to make this match happen. Team Tazz versus Sting, Darby Allin, and I assume Cody Rhodes or somebody else. Most likely Cody because he's a big Sting fan. So yeah. So that's.
But again, they're just doing what they did in WCW, where it was just Sting. He wouldn't say anything. He would just show for a whole year, and then finally had a match. I think that's what they're kind of going for.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a promo. Yeah,
he's had a promo, but just more of like, why is he here? What are the answers? It's kind of a play off of that storyline.
Yeah, basically, he's not really giving you many answers to anything, so we'll see what happens going forward. But that's AEW Dynamite, our 2 takeaways from the show. Now let's get to our news and rumors. Okay, so with the news and rumors, the first news we have is about Chris Jericho. He recently came out and said that he had COVID-19. He was diagnosed with COVID-19 back in September, but he was asymptomatic. I don't really remember him taking too much time off of TV in that time period.
No.
Can't really recall. May have not shown up for a week or so, but maybe the Inner Circle was off that week, or it was just MJF. But yeah, he did have it. He said he had it. It was diagnosed, but asymptomatic, so no symptoms. So gladly he was okay and everything like that. But it was an interesting thing that AEW never really even brought it up. That was kind of interesting. They usually take digs at WWE for that kind of stuff, that they're just trying to like hide it. But AEW didn't say anything about it, so it was kind of interesting. But it was a little tidbit that we found out. Yeah.
And it's probably personal for Chris Jericho. It's probably up to him if he wants to have people know or let people know. And he's pretty open, so I'm surprised he didn't let people know right off the get-go. But it was asymptomatic. He was lucky. Didn't have any of the symptoms, so good for him. I mean, whatever. He got lucky, so
yeah, he got lucky. Yeah, so he's fine, but he did have it. It's just interesting that they didn't bring it up on the show, or they didn't really say much about it. You didn't see any changes anywhere really. Like it wasn't like anything taken steps after that happened. Who knows if he disclosed? I mean, he had to have disclosed it, but he got the time off. I just don't recall off the top of my head him not showing up on the shows during September to make it, to be known that he was in quarantine and recovering, even though he had no symptoms. But so the next bit of news and rumor is our boy Tazz, AEW commentator Tazz, leader of Team Tazz. Recently just came out from the Grilling JR podcast with Conrad Thompson. Yeah. The reason Tazz did not work out in WWE was a lot of backstage politics. He was brought in basically because Jim Ross wanted him there, because he could see, he could basically see that he could do the same thing with Tazz that Paul Heyman did in ECW and bring that over to WWE and do the same kind of booking with him. Paul Heyman was so good at hiding the weaknesses, accentuating the positives of every talent that he managed. Now we find out that that's what he wanted to do, JR with Tazz. Vince was on board because he trusted JR, but a lot of backstage talking from other guys who said that his suplexes were dangerous and that they didn't want to sell for a guy who was 5'8" because it didn't look realistic. Even though in probably real life he could probably take down majority of the roster. But yeah, so that's pretty much the end of Tazz. He got sent. He had injuries. He had an injury as well and was afraid that he was going to be let go or he wasn't going to get paid because of the injury, because he heard all the backstage talk about him. And Vince pretty much got disenfranchised with him, just from all the politics in the back. And that's the reason Tazz was just relegated to a broadcaster role and was never really done anything in WWE itself. But interesting news to get from, JR, the source himself, the guy who signed Tazz, the guy who was backstage with Tazz all the time and knew about the story. But it's just other wrestlers just, talking bad about him and being, saying that he was unsafe in the ring and his suplexes were dangerous. So that's what happened with Tazz.
Yeah, I mean, Tazz is one of the biggest badass ECW ever created. I mean, if you go back to that time in 97, 98, and he was a monster there. His suplexes were sick. You were just waiting for him to kill somebody with that, survive if I let you. That's basically what it was like. We were really excited him at Royal Rumble 2000 when he popped out from the music and the towel, and they added that extra Z and kind of messed everything up from the get-go.
I mean, he did choke out Angle in his first night in the company.
He did, and he looked awesome, and we could deal with that. And then all of a sudden, it just like this, he was wearing a trucker shirt and sweats, And then like this, he was an announcer on SmackDown. And his career just like died so quickly, and just it was such a waste because at one point he was like a joke between you and I. We were like, remember this guy ECW? We used to stay up till 1 a.m. watching this dude, and now he's like an announcer. So it happened real quick. But Tazz is the man. I mean, Tazz was a beast, and he probably destroyed half of the entire roster at that point in time because he was just a freak of nature. Small guy, but thick and can choke you out.
Yeah, and he was a real badass and all that stuff like that. But you could just tell from the point after that matchup that it all went downhill, especially the invasion angle where he was part of Steve Austin's crew, and Steve Austin, and they just made fun of him, and Austin would bitch him out in the ring, in story, obviously booked by the creative team and Vince and stuff like that. So it's not anything on Austin, but it's obviously coming from Vince himself. But Vince just disenfranchised with him after all the trash people were talking about him backstage. It just is what it is. But interesting little bit of news there from JR, from the Grilling JR podcast. So that's our video for you guys today. That's our news and rumors and our 2 takeaways from AEW Dynamite. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Remember to comment, like on this video. Helps us out a lot with the algorithm, so you guys see more of our content, and appreciate you guys for tuning in. Remember, if it doesn't work, but not do the job.
Later, Marks.